Here is my second order of mostly hobby-related stuff from Temu that I will be using for my upcoming projects. Let's take a quick look first, then a closer look at some of the more interesting products later. I'll try this one later in the video. Looks like it could be fun. First one out is this new bottle cutter because the last one was crappy. We'll take a closer look at it later too. Not sure what that cotton stuff is for. The string I won't be needing either. They could have included some fine grit sandpaper too for a smooth finish, but I have ordered that too anyways. Resistance bands with handles for a driftwood workout contraption I'm gonna make in an upcoming video. It's gonna be awesome. Just a measure band for measuring stuff I can't measure with other measuring tools. More circular saw blades for rotary tools. These ones seem sturdier than the ones from my previous Temu video. They came covered in oil.
Many metal tools are often shipped with a coating of oil to prevent rust and corrosion during storage and transport. This is especially important when the tools are made from steel or other metals that are prone to oxidation when exposed to moisture and air. Oiling is an inexpensive and effective method to protect the products.
Just a spray bottle for cooking oil to reduce amount of oil needed. Had to order one after I noticed olive oil has like 900 calories per 100 gram. I bought 2 bags of these workout bands too for my driftwood workout contraption. The other bag is somewhere in the pile. A simple speed controller for DC motors. This is supposedly for 3D printers, but I'm going to try to use it for my electric guillotine project. The plan is to connect it to a DC motor, then the belt should lift the blade up and release it at the top. I'm sure I can find something to use this for. A large DC motor that ought to be able to lift the guillotine blade. Small power source for small DC motors with on-off switch. This thing is for making small notches where you will be drilling. Quite handy. Not sure why they call it automatic though, since you gotta use manual labor to punch the holes. Another electric motor I'll play with later. This one goes up to 12 volt. Another DC motor speed regulator, but this one has an on-off switch. This one is going to be fun to try. I'll bring it along on my next hike and give it a shot on a tree or a log and add the results later in the video. Same, but different. This one is probably more suited for small branches or silent assassinations. I'll bring this one along too and give it a spin. A carving knife set with blades in various shapes. Could come in handy at some point. These are for clamping corners together after you have glued them, for example. I ordered some more sandpaper ranging from 60 to 2000 grit that I'll be using mainly for sanding the edges of cut glass bottles. When I moved it back to start, it said minus 0.3. I now see that I probably should have hit the 0 button there to reset it to 0, but I didn't even notice that button while I was trying it out, so I thought it was crappy and I had to add 0.3 to the measurements. Silly me. It should actually show 9.9 now if I had reset it. True measurement is 10 millimeters, so it's only off by 0.1, which is actually pretty decent considering it's a cheap plastic caliper. Just 0.1 off here too. When measuring the ruler, I get the same result on both calipers, so my conclusion is that this thing is accurate. If you need some insanely accurate measurements for important stuff, you don't use either of these anyway, but some specialized equipment. This balaclava is preparation for the next winter. Pew pew! This kit gives a total of half a liter of epoxy. Haven't tried using epoxy before, so this should be fun. I'll give it a quick try later in the video. Gotta do some research on how to avoid bubbles and how to sand it. I'm sure I'll find a use for this back scratcher at some point in life. These things I'll be using when playing around with the epoxy. More headwear for next winter. This one will be used with the cool face mask from the last Temu video. This one is for shredding meat or playing Wolverine. Doubt I'll find a use for it, but I wanted it anyways. Another thing that's useless for me, yet I wanted it anyways. There, I have fine-tuned this hammer. Now I broke it. Now I fixed it. I was going to use these magnets for a tool holder made of driftwood, which would allow metal tools to stand upright. These magnets were insanely small though, too small to be used. Guess I should have looked on the caliper how much 6mm was before I ordered. This one is to attach to screwdrivers to get into tight spots where you otherwise wouldn't be able to fit the screwdriver. No idea what this thing is though. A handle maybe, but it doesn't feel very effective. Guess it does what it's supposed to, but you gotta hold the head firmly in place while screwing. All major decisions will be decided by this coin from now on. A little pen-shaped thing for drilling small holes by hand. Could maybe come in handy at some point, perhaps for pre-drilling holes or for center punching, but now I have that other tool for that. It gets the job done, but it takes some time. Another of those things I won't get any use for but wanted anyways. The entertainment value of this thing is like 5 seconds. Will I get rich if I master playing this? Oh my. A soldering iron kit with adjustable temperature from 180 to 500 degrees. It also has an LCD screen. I'm going to use it to attach wires to DC motors. It's going to take too long to go through everything here and try it out, so I'll make an own little video for it as soon as possible instead. I slashed the casing when I cut open the box. That's highly annoying and upsets my OCD. Lesson learned though. This is the cheapest wireless rotary tool I could find. It does feel very lightweight and cheap. It's probably just a small rechargeable battery and a small DC motor inside the plastic tube. I'll have to make an own little video for this one as well, as it would take too long time to go through it in this video. Hopefully it won't suck too much, as it would be very handy to have a wireless rotary tool in my arsenal. I have now gone through all the items from this order. Let's take a closer look at a couple of them. The previous bottle cutter I bought that was mostly plastic parts was useless. Couldn't get a straight score line because the parts moved when I applied some pressure. Hopefully this one is better, as it's made of metal. The very first cut went fine, but I could feel the parts starting to move on this one too. The second one went well too, but again the parts are moving. A bit of uneven pressure and the score line won't meet up where it started. This wasn't very good. The back plate moved and the score line didn't become perfect, which is what I'm aiming for. That is decent enough. A bit inconsistencies here and there where I change grip, but it's within acceptable limits. When you score a glass bottle and you hear that crack, that means the score line has caught up with the beginning. You should only go around the bottle once due to several reasons. I'll cover that in my upcoming glass bottle cutting video, once I have mastered this shit. This score line didn't meet up very good due to the parts moving. Wine bottles and generally large objects seem to be easier to get a good score line on. With the thin bottles, the parts start to move easily when you apply pressure, probably due to the pressure being spread out more on the large bottles while it's concentrated on the thin bottles. That bottle got ruined, which is quite annoying as I wanted to make a drink glass of it. The second scoreline attempt was a success. Gonna wrap this up now as it is dragging out, but this bottle cutter is not particularly easy to use due to the parts moving when applying pressure. If you don't apply enough pressure, you get a bad scoreline. If you apply too much, the parts move. It even says in the instructions pamphlet that this cutter takes some getting used to. You would probably need a ton of bottles before you get the hang of it. Well, I'm done wasting money on bottle cutters. I'm gonna make my own solid one where the parts can't move at all, as a perfect score line improves the chances of getting a clean separation by a lot. The goal of this game can be to either clear only your start color or the entire field for a longer game.
Nej, der er den. Du går fra mig den.
Well, I had the sun in my eyes, so I lost this round.
Nej, altså. Så er en igjen.
This probably turned into the longest round in history. The wind was not in my favor, so I lost this round too. A pretty fun, engaging game. I'd say it was worth the $10.
Alright.
Already wearing the super cool Pew Pew t-shirt, which is actually quite comfy. It doesn't feel cheap as one might expect either. I'll try on the balaclavas too with goggles and a face mask that's gonna keep me sheltered from the cold winter winds next winter. This one feels pretty comfortable to wear, easy to breathe in too. Gotta see if I find some smaller goggles on Temu though, as these are a bit of an overkill. Jesus Christ, this crap was tight as fuck. Must be meant for tiny heads. Not very comfortable to breathe in either. This one is bound for the trash. Only the pocket saws and the epoxy left, and this video is a wrap. I have zero faith in this. It's basically just a rough wire. And there we go. It broke. What a piece of shit. I do have some faith in the next one, though. This one feels quite sturdy. It's like a chainsaw chain with handles. I see while doing the video editing that my sawing technique is very bad. I'm sawing at an angle, which makes the sawing harder and ends up with the chain getting stuck after a while. I should have been standing straight above while sawing instead. Also, this is probably much easier on a tree that is standing up. This was very tiresome. It made me want to puke and go to sleep instantly, but at least it worked. This fallen tree is quite fresh, so I'll give it a shot here too. I'm halfway through, but the chain just keeps getting stuck. I have been sawing at an angle again. I'm trying a different approach. It's hard, but it's working. This hand-powered chainsaw is probably what the Neanderthals used to cut down trees, as it would still be another 3,000 years before Jesus was born and invented electricity. I like this one. Gonna keep it permanently in my backpack. Will be great for cutting up smaller branches and stuff I want to drag home. Last one out is the crystal epoxy resin kit. I have never fiddled with this stuff before, or done some tests before starting to film, so the results will most likely not be the best. Not gonna try to make anything fancy. I'll just see how it goes with bubbles and how clear it becomes when hardened. Bottle A and bottle B should be mixed with a 1:1 ratio, then stirred gently but thoroughly. Stirring like crazy can cause more bubbles to form, according to my research. I'll do 3 cups of each to start with. Now it should rest for some minutes to allow air bubbles to escape the epoxy, according to ChatGPT. I'll give it a couple of minutes, then pour it into the molds. I used a wide container as recommended by ChatGPT so that the air bubbles should float up and leave the epoxy more easily. I did make a mistake here though. The stirring surface became much bigger than it would with a smaller but taller container, which I didn't compensate for, so I should have stirred for some more minutes. But since this was my very first mix, I didn't know what it should look like when properly stirred and assumed it would become clear when hardened. There we go. The epoxy is poured into the molds. There are some tiny air bubbles in them, as well as the blurriness from not mixing long enough, so I should probably have left the mixture rest for 10 minutes or so instead of just a few before I started pouring. This is batch 1. I'll put it aside and check back tomorrow. What little that's left in the mixing container seems quite clear and free of bubbles at least. I'll mix up some more, this time in a smaller container for comparison. Then I'll stir for some more minutes too. I stirred for 4 minutes now and it looks perfect. No lines or blurriness whatsoever. I'll let it rest for 10 minutes before I play around with it. I'll let it rest for 10 minutes before I play around with it and see if the tiny bubbles vanish. I'll pour some into the mold, then I'll put this stuff away too for tomorrow. What's left in the mixing cup looks very nice, clear and just a couple of itty-bitty bubbles. It's been a day now, but the epoxy is not dry yet. If I touch it, it's sticky and leaves finger marks. This one doesn't look too shabby. A few tiny bubbles, but otherwise it's nice and clear. This shows well that it's poorly mixed. From the second batch, this one looks very nice. This one is going to be cool when it's done, probably. But I need to give it several more coats on both sides, so that's going to take some days. A new package from Temu was hanging on my mailbox today, so I'm going to wrap this video up. Then we take a look at the epoxy results in the next Temu unboxing video once it's fully hardened. But before I start on the next package, I'll make some quick videos about the soldering iron and rotary tool kits.